96 arrested. But the system failed first. This can happen again.
4:47 a.m. The border is awake before the sun, but this morning it's awake for the wrong reason. A cold wind pushes dust through floodlights and razor wire. Search towers blink. The ground is hard-packed, frozen, and marked with tire ruts that don't belong to any patrol unit. Down the access road, a line of unmarked SUVs idles with headlights off. Radios whisper in clipped codes. Breath fogs inside balaclavas. Gloves tighten on rifle grips. According to federal sources, the mission is timed to the minute because the last 72 hours have been chaos. Travel ban confusion at ports of entry, crowds bottlenecked, documentation disputes, overwhelmed screening lanes. When policy slams the brakes, criminals hit the gas. 4:49 a.m. Federal Task Force. Stack up. FBI and ICE Homeland Security investigations in a tight formation. DHS tactical support behind them. A medic in the rear. AK-9 handler watching the wind. The target isn't a cartel mansion or a desert stash shack. It's a bland private processing facility tucked behind a freight yard. Windows blacked out, cameras angled away from the street, a sign on the gate that reads, Security Services. The kind of place you wouldn't look at twice. But the door is steel, triple bolted, fresh weld marks around the frame. This wasn't just a building, it was a fortress. 4:50 a.m. The ram strikes. Metal rings out and the door barely flexes. A breaching charge is set. The team leans back. A hand signal. A half-second pause. Then the blast. The door caves inward with a violent cough of smoke and concrete dust. A flashbang follows. White light, concussion, ears ringing. And then gunfire. Not wild. Not panicked. Disciplined bursts from deeper inside. This is what it sounds like when the people inside were warned. 4:51 a.m. Go, go, go. Agents flow through the breach. Left, right, clear. A hallway reeks of bleach and ammonia, too clean, like somebody tried to erase a story. A suspect appears at the far end with a pistol. He fires once, misses. The return fire is immediate and controlled. He drops. A second man runs for a side door, dragging a duffel bag that hits the floor with the weight of bricks. He makes it 3 steps. Hands on, cuffs on, face to the tile. 4:53 a.m. They hit the first locked room. A keypad, a camera above it, a red light blinking. An agent pries open the plastic casing and cuts the wire. The lock clicks. The door swings open. And the air changes. Not just colder, heavier. Inside are rows of cots, blankets, water bottles, children's backpacks, used diapers in sealed trash bags, a stack of generic wristbands like you'd see at a hospital. This isn't housing, it's staging, it's containment, and it's organized. 4:55 a.m. In the next room, passports and IDs in plastic sleeves, multiple countries, some clearly fraudulent, some real but mismatched to the faces on the intake photos. On a table, a ledger labeled Transit. Under it, columns. Adult, $12K. Child, $18K. Family, package rate. Human beings priced like cargo. 4:57 a.m. A back office safe is forced open. Inside, stacks of cash, banded and labeled with dates. Burners sealed in plastic. A hard drive wrapped in foil. A notebook with names written in shorthand. And a single crisp document on official-looking letterhead, a facilitation memo referencing a travel exception queue created during the chaos. The memo includes a contact name, an individual described only as a senior advisor. Not a trafficker, not a smuggler, a political operator. The first major revelation lands quietly, like a judge reading a sentence. The ring wasn't just exploiting border chaos. It was plugged into it. If you want the full truth, hit like and subscribe the channel so this story reaches more people. 5:08 a.m. A second team hits a warehouse 2 miles away, hidden behind semi-trailers and shipping containers. Entry is fast. A roll-up door is cut. The cold air inside smells like plastic, diesel, and chemical sweetness. They find pallets. At first glance, medical supplies, blankets, hygiene kits. But K-9 units don't care about labels. The dog hits hard at the base of a pallet, scratching and barking like it's trying to tear through the lie itself. Agents cut the shrink wrap. Under the top layer, vacuum-sealed bricks, cocaine, meth, and pressed pills stamped to look like legitimate prescription medication. Forensic analysis revealed fentanyl residue on multiple packaging surfaces, suggesting cross-contamination and mass handling. Then the tally comes in. 96 arrests across coordinated hits, drivers, handlers, document forgers, safehouse operators, and financial couriers. And that's the first time the public number appears. But the public number is never the real story. The real story is what the drugs translate into. The fentanyl alone, depending on purity and cutting, could be converted into millions of potentially lethal doses. That's not users. That's millions of moments where someone thinks they're taking a pill and never wakes up. Families across the Southwest and beyond had been mourning for years. Now they knew why. 5:33 a.m. In a third raid, agents strike a suburban rental home used as a cool-down site where people are held until payment clears. Inside, space heaters, blankets, and a whiteboard schedule. Not a family home. A processing line. In the basement, a table with laminated rules in multiple languages. No phones, no noise, no windows. Silence became a weapon. 5:52 a.m. Digital evidence starts talking. The seized hard drive contains encrypted folders. Analysts crack the first layer and find a spreadsheet of payments routed through shell companies with harmless names: logistics, staffing, consulting. But what jumps out is the timing. Transfers spike during the travel ban chaos, when airports and border lanes were jammed, when confusion was thick enough to hide inside. Court documents show the network used exception processing as cover, moving people through crowded systems where scrutiny drops and officials are overloaded. 6:17 a.m. Agents map the routes. Not just border crossings. A full pipeline. Safe houses in 3 states. A warehouse hub near a freight yard. A document lab in an office park, a cash consolidation site near a casino, and a final distribution handoff to street crews and courier drivers. It isn't random, it's engineered. 6:48 a.m. A breakthrough comes from a single burner phone, a chat thread labeled VIP. Messages aren't street slang, they're formal, short, corporate, confirm corridor, confirm timing, escalate to advisor. A file attachment appears, a calendar invite. Location, a hotel conference room. Subject, stakeholder briefing. Attendees include initials that match the senior advisor reference in the memo. The ring didn't just bribe cops. It didn't just threaten witnesses. It sought legitimacy, access, cover, and it found it in the one place that should never be for sale. 7:10 a.m. Agents execute a 4th warrant at a financial services storefront. Money transfers, check cashing, remittances. The kind of place communities depend on. But behind the counter, a second computer system, a hidden ledger, and bundles of prepaid debit cards, dozens, maybe hundreds, each loaded just under reporting thresholds. Not spending, washing. Money laundering isn't a side hustle here. It's the spine. Comment verdict if you believe she deserved justice. 7:42 a.m. A supervisor in the operation looks at the network map and says something federal agents rarely say out loud. This is institutional. Because the data doesn't just show criminals moving product. It shows the system bending around them. A suspicious inspection that never happened. A vehicle flagged, then unflagged. A secondary screening, request cancelled. And the signatures, digital and physical, keep pointing back to the same orbit of influence. 8:06 a.m. Now the story escalates again. A 5th raid hits a storage unit facility. The door rolls up. Inside, printer rigs, laminators, blank passport pages, hologram overlays, stacks of headshots. A document factory. In one bin, uniforms, reflective vests labeled security, lanyards with fake agency seals, and clipboards with forms designed to look official enough to stop questions. That's how trafficking survives in plain sight. It wears authority. 8:39 a.m. Human cost lands again, this time in faces, not numbers. Agents find video footage on a seized camera card. Crowded rooms, frightened people, children sleeping on floors, whispered instructions not to cry, not to move, not to look at windows. A mother holding a child so tightly the child's cheeks are pressed flat. A man begging on camera for someone to call his family. Trafficking isn't just border crime. It's kidnapping by economics. It's coercion disguised as opportunity. 9:12 a.m. A sixth operation unfolds at a rural property used as a transfer point. Vehicles are staged there, rental vans, SUVs, trucks with hidden compartments. Agents breach. Inside, weapons, rifles with optics, pistols with extended magazines, body armor stacked like inventory. Because when the money is that large, violence isn't an accident. It's a policy. 9:57 a.m. Then the authority exposure detonates. Analysts match a number in the VIP chat thread to a contact saved under a nickname, Policy. The number ties back to a consultancy linked to a high-level political circle. Again, we keep it unnamed here. But the role is clear. Not a gangster. A connector. A person who understands how to exploit chaos, redirect attention, and weaponize bureaucracy. Hit subscribe if you want to see the full network revealed. 10:26 a.m. Stakeholder briefing becomes more than an email subject. Agents find travel receipts, hotel invoices, and expense reimbursements routed through a shell nonprofit that claimed community outreach. The same entity also paid advisory fees to the consultancy tied to policy. Fraud on top of trafficking. Trafficking on top of fraud. A system that funds itself while pretending to serve the public. 11:03 a.m. Overdose data is pulled and overlaid with the network's distribution timeline. Spikes follow shipments like shadow follows light. Every spike is a town. Every town is a cluster of funerals. And the pills, pressed to look like medicine, are the cruelest part. Because they don't look like poison. They look like help. Share this video so communities understand what was hiding. 11:41 a.m. A witness comes forward under protection. According to federal sources, the witness describes corridor coaching, instructions given to traffickers on exactly what to say during the travel ban chaos. Which words to use, which documents to display, which lanes to target, which shift changes to exploit. That's not criminal instinct. That's inside knowledge. 12:22 p.m. And now the case stops being a ring. It becomes a blueprint for systemic exploitation. A policy shock creates confusion. Confusion creates congestion. Congestion creates blind spots. Blind spots create opportunity. Opportunity creates profit. And profit buys protection. Silence becomes a weapon again, this time not inside safe houses, but inside institutions. Silence in meetings. Silence in oversight. Silence in press statements that say, "We take this seriously," while the pipeline keeps moving. 13:10 p.m. Arrests continue. Drivers taken off highways. Accountants taken from offices. Community leaders taken from staged events. A few suspects fight. Most don't, because they believed paperwork would protect them. They believed proximity to power would protect them. They believed chaos would protect them. If this shocked you, subscribe the channel and comment exposed below. 1400 hours p.m. Now comes the reckoning. How the system allowed it. Overwhelmed screening during sudden policy shifts. Inconsistent guidance that created loopholes. Contractor access to sensitive processes without sufficient vetting. Fragmented databases that didn't communicate in real time. A culture where raising concerns is treated as causing problems. Procedural failure becomes structural failure when it repeats. Complicity becomes contagious when it is never punished. 14:52 p.m. The philosophical truth is simple and brutal. A border isn't just a line on a map. It's a promise. A promise that law applies equally, that human beings are not merchandise, that public authority cannot be rented. When that promise breaks, the damage isn't only crime. It is moral injury. It teaches citizens that rules are for the powerless. And it teaches criminals that chaos is a currency. 15:37 p.m. Immediate consequences follow, because this time, the case has bodies, numbers, and digital trails. 96 arrests. Multiple seizures. Asset freezes. Emergency audits of exception processing. Oversight hearings. Interagency task force expansions. But the unresolved threat remains. Because networks like this don't dissolve. They mutate. They swap phone numbers. They rename companies. They recruit new advisors. They wait for the next crisis. 16:28 p.m. Lasting impact is measured in two directions. 1. The lives interrupted by trafficking. People forced into rooms, moved like freight, stripped of agency. 2. The lives ended by product, pills that look like medicine, doses that turn a night into a funeral. Every statistic is a household. Every seizure is a neighborhood spared. Every loophole left open is a future headline. 17:18 p.m. This is the final warning, and it matters. This network survived because oversight collapsed during chaos, access was granted without accountability, and institutional silence protected influence over integrity. If vigilance fades, if citizens stop demanding transparency when policy shifts create confusion, this can happen again. Stay informed. Stay engaged. If you believe public power should never shield trafficking, hit like. Comment this. When crisis hits, what matters more, speed or verification? And who should be held responsible when loopholes are exploited? Subscribe because this story doesn't end with arrests. The real test is whether the system closes the gaps, names the enablers, and refuses to let chaos become cover again.